Hello everybody, I'm Melissa and welcome back to Book Bar and welcome to what's going to be a super long wrap up because I'm doing my September and October wrap ups. Usually I do a mid-month for every month and then an end of month, and I didn't do either in September or October, so you're gonna get them all. It's gonna be a rapid fire. I'll just give you like basic facts, trying to keep it to like 1 or 2 sentences per book, and then my rating. I don't have much. If you see me looking down, it's because I'm looking at my computer to see notes and stuff, because I don't have, in my little slump, I haven't been doing like my reading journal or anything like that, so it's all just on my computer. So we will see. In the month of September, I read a total of 18 books, and I carried over 4 books. So I had 18 books that I completed, and then 4 that I moved over into October. In October, I read 21 books, and I'm carrying over 1, which is also a carryover from September. And that's Manacled by Cinlin Yu. Just haven't gotten to it. I do talk about the books in order of how I completed them. So I may not have started it first, but I ended it first. That's the way it goes. And we're just going to go ahead and get right on into it. I will also be doing my stats and faves the same way. So October and September will be together, but they'll each be separate. But we're just going to go ahead and I'm going to go on into it. So in September, I read The Comeback by Lily Chu. This is like the second book that Lily Chu has written. So she had The Stand-In last year, and I really enjoyed it. They're like Audible exclusives originally, and then I think they can move on to print. But Philippa Sue narrates them, and she's fantastic. This one was more like contemporary than it felt like contemporary romance. But it was still great. I had a great time. I gave it 5 stars. Then I read The X Effect by Carla Sorensen. This was Matthew and Ava. It's sisters, ex, friends to lovers, co-workers. It's a football romance, kind of forbidden, but not really. Like, there's no like nothing that says they can't be together. And that one I gave 4.5 stars. It's the second book in the Washington Wolf series. I read The Marriage Effect a couple months ago, or no, The Bombshell Effect a couple months ago, and I enjoyed that, so I wanted to continue the series. Then the next book that I read was Magnolia Parks by Jessa Hastings. I absolutely adored this. I read it for a vlog where I read like the summer's like top books. I'll link it up here. This book lived up to the hype. It's Magnolia and BJ, and I still need to continue the series, but I absolutely adored it. It was such a quick read. I mean, it's a chunky book, but I read it in like 12 hours. Like, I flew through this. Absolutely adored it. This was 5 stars. Then I read Flawless by Elsie Silver. That was another book that I just absolutely adored. It was another 5-star book. This was a small town. It was Summer and Rhett. And Rhett is a bull rider. He's grumpy. She's kind of a sunshine. The dirty talk in it is fantastic. She's forced to like kind of be like his babysitter. And yeah, it was great. It was 5 stars. I adored it. Also in that vlog of like reading books that took over in book world by storm over the summer. And then the last book that I read for that vlog was Every Summer After by Carly Fortune. I mean, this was okay. It was Persephone and Sam, second chance romance. I know a lot of people compare it to Love and Other Words. I've never read that book, so I didn't have the comparison, but it was just okay. It was a solid 4 stars. There were times where I was kind of like not focusing on it, but I had a good time. I definitely I see the hype for it. It just didn't live up quite as much to the hype as I thought it would. I definitely kind of saw the twist coming. So the reason that they had like broken up, and I got it. Then I read It Ain't Me Babe. This was a buddy read with Kaylee from Kaylee's Books, and we both just kind of felt meh about it. I think I liked it a little bit more than she did. I ended up giving it 4 stars. It was pretty good. I mean, 4 stars is still good in my book, but there were just some things that I didn't love about it. I've read better motorcycle club romances. This one's kind of like a motorcycle club and a cult romance. It is fairly dark. But yeah, I had a good time. It was 4 stars. Who is it? It's River and May. May escapes this cult, and River is like the leader of the MC, and he has a speech impediment, so he doesn't really ever talk. The only people he talks to are like his best friend and then May. Then the next book I finished was Riot House by Callie Hart. I read this for a vlog where I was reading books by authors that were going to Wanderlust in San Antonio. This was Ren and Elodie. It's kind of like a dark, I thought it was a dark romance, but really it's more of just like a dark academia romance. I thought it was like a bully, but not really. Like, he never bullies her or anything, so it's just more like a dark academia, small town, rich kid drama. It was good. I really enjoyed it. I gave it 4.5 stars, I think. And so I had a good time with it. I'm really excited to continue the series. I know that I wanted to kind of take a break because I know that the second book in the series follows the exact same timeline. So, and I know what couple it is. So I wanted to kind of give myself a break before going into that one. So it'll probably be a book that I read maybe in 2023. We'll see. I might try to get it in the next couple months, but who knows. Then I read Scoring Wilder by R.S. Gray. This was a fun sports romance, coach, athlete, slight age gap. I don't think it's like as big of an age gap as like other sports romances, because I think he's still like in the prime of his career. He's just helping out with her soccer team, and she's in school, in college. Where is it? It's Kinsley and Liam. Sport friends to lovers. It's very low angst. It's a slow burn. Forbidden. I give 5 stars. It was a great time. Then the next book that I read was Tattered Stars by Catherine Cowles. Everyone was talking about this series, the Tattered and Torn series. I do want to keep reading on it. I do want to continue with the series. I just haven't had a chance. Again, slump hit pretty close to around this time. This was Everly and Hayes, small town. When she was little, her dad had kidnapped Hayes' sister, and she went and told the police and was kind of exiled from her family, and now she's back in town, and he's like, why are you here bringing up all of this pain that your family caused my family so much pain? Why are you here doing this? So kind of like an enemies to lovers-esque romance. It was fun. I gave 4.5 stars. There was just a few things that I didn't love that kind of lowered it a little bit. Then I read The Silent Waters by Brittany Cherry, and this is Brooks and Maggie. It's a small town, childhood friends to lovers. This book is just fantastic. Maggie witnesses something horrific when she's little, and she was waiting for Brooks to meet her somewhere, and she witnesses this horrific thing happen and goes silent. Like, she does not speak anymore and hasn't spoken since this happened. And now, and like she's become like severely agoraphobic. Like, she will not leave her house, and Brooks is there for her and is like her best friend and wants to be there and does, he's just there constantly, and he like gives up his life for her basically, and she's like, no, you need to go do your own thing, like, leave me be. I'm never gonna leave. I'm stuck here. You need to go be a musician and a rock star that you want to be and do your own thing. So he goes off and does his own thing. Then tragedy happens for him, and they get back together, of course, and things happen. It was beautiful. I adored it. I gave it 5 stars. I'm still not sure if I liked that one or The Gravity of Us more. I'm gonna have to do a reread of both and decide which one's better. They're both fantastic. Then I read The Marriage Effect by Carlos Renson. This is the 3rd book in the Washington Wolves series. This is Paige and Logan, and this is a marriage of convenience. Logan is the caretaker for his 4 younger sisters, and Paige has just inherited a fortune, but she needs to be married to get the fortune. And Logan's brother is sniffing around trying to take his sisters from him, and he's like, no, I want them. So they decide to get married as a marriage of convenience. They fall in love. It's fantastic. It was my favorite book in the Washington Wolves series. I gave it 5 stars. Then the next book I finished was Beauty and the Baller by Ilsa Madden Mills. I meant to read this for a vlog, and I just never did. So yeah, that's fine. But this was a sports romance. She sneaks into a party. What was her name? Where is it? No. Nova sneaks into a party where Ronan is, and she's dressed up like his fantasy of Princess Leia, and they have a one-night stand. He may or may not call her the wrong name. She leaves without saying anything. Now it's 2 years later, and she's back in her little small town, and who happens to be her neighbor but Ronan. And the small town, they really want him to stay and be the head coach, so they do all these things. Like, the town does all this stuff to, like, kind of push them together. There's people that don't want them to be together. It was a cute, fun time. I enjoyed it. I had a good time. I'm excited for the second book in the series. I gave this 4 stars. Yeah. 4.5. It was good. I love the one-night stand. It has, like, a fake dating. It's fake dating, sports. It's basically all of my favorite things rolled into one. There's just a few things. I'm not 100% sure. Like, I haven't read a 5-star Ilse Madden Mills book. But Princess and the Pirate does sound really good. And so does Dear Ava. So, I think, like, she writes great. There's just a few, like, choice things that I don't love pacing-wise that tend to, like, lower my reading. But it's still a great time. Then I finished Wicked and the Wallflower by Sarah McLean. This is obviously a historical. I have the gorgeous step back. This is Devil and Felicity. It's kind of a revenge plot, friends to lovers, class difference, self-made man. Basically, Devil, it kind of forces Felicity to try to marry this other guy, but he also wants to get back at him. It's a whole convoluted story. I had a good time with it. Not my favorite historical I've ever read. I gave it 3.5, 4 stars. And I honestly don't remember too much about it past what I just told you. Then I read Dangerous by Minerva Spencer. This one was fantastic. I had it on the 5-star predictions. I'll post that up here. And it was 5 stars. Although now that I'm like thinking about it, I'm like, was it 5 stars? I don't really remember a ton about it. Other than Mia was she had been like stolen and put into a harem when she was little. Or not little, but she was like 17 or 18. She ended up having a son from that harem. And now she's free because the guy died. And she's back in Europe or in England. And she needs to get married to try to save her son. So she ends up in kind of a marriage of convenience with Adam. And he's considered the murdering Marquess because he's like killed wives or engaged, like, fiancés. But it was good. It was fun. I really enjoyed it. I said I gave it 5 stars. Don't remember a ton about it, but I did have a great time. Then I finished Bright Like Wildfire by Juliet Cross. This was another small town contemporary romance. I skipped one. I'll talk about it after this. I skipped one. But this was Ben and Betty. It's a small town romance. It was like kind of enemies. She thinks of him as an enemy, but he doesn't think of her as an enemy. They're going to be doing a play together in their like town, and the Beaumonts or something. Beaufort, some small town. But it was super cute and fun, and I had a great time. I gave 5 stars. Then the book I first mentioned was All Roads Lead Here by Mariana Zapata. I gave this one 4.5 stars, mostly because it's not my favorite Mariana Zapata I've read, so I couldn't give a 5 because when I compare it to like the other 3 that I had read, it wasn't a 5-star in that. But that was Rhodes and Aurora rents this house out from an ad on the internet, and she gets there, and it turns out that it wasn't Rhodes that was renting that had put it online. It was his son. I cannot think of the son's name, but basically it's a age gap, dislike to love, silver fox, slow burn, of course, Mariana Zapata, small town, single parent. You learn kind of the whole single parent aspect, like where the mom is in the picture, and like she's very welcoming to Aurora. There's no like drama in that sense, but it was great. There is drama with Aurora's like secret that she's hiding, but it was a great time. I gave 4.5 stars. Would have been 5, but I just couldn't compare it with Kulti and like Lugov and Winnipeg. So 4.5. Okay, I'm getting tired here. Almost into September. Then I read Twisted Love by Anna Huang. This is it's like a dark light romance. This is Alex and Ava. It's a brother's best friend. Revenge plot. Hate to love. Alex does not like Ava, but then he becomes completely enamored. Very much Grumpy Sunshine. Forced proximity. Ava's brother Josh is going off to South America to work as like a doctor for a year, and Josh asks Alex to live in his house and watch out for Ava because Ava's friends tend to be a little reckless and wild, and he wants to make sure his sister is safe. And of course, through this, Alex and Ava get very close. Then something happens, and Alex kind of pushes Ava away, and Ava like hightails it out of there, and they end up back together. And it was cute and fun. I gave it 4 stars, especially after reading more books in the series. It's definitely 4 stars. So far, my least favorite, but I had a great time. I mean, 4 stars is still good. There was just a few things. I didn't love Alex. I know a lot of people don't love Ava. I loved Ava. But I didn't love Alex. Like, I just felt like he was a little too much for me at times. Then the last book that I finished in the month of September was Enemies by Tijan. This was a reread for me, but it wasn't like a 2022 or rereading 2021 favorites. It was rereading a book that I had really enjoyed before. I started it before my trip to Colorado because I was like having a hard time falling asleep, and I ended up listening to it. I could not fall asleep. I ended up like listening to it all night, and then on my drive up to the airport. But this is Stone and, why can't I think of her name? Dusty. Stone and Dusty. Childhood friends to enemies to lovers. And it was fantastic. They grew up together. Stone and Dusty were best friends. Then Stone kind of like pushes Dusty away. Like he's like too cool for school for her. Then some tragedy happens with Dusty's family. And Stone's family kind of forces Dusty's family into like isolation. And Stone is the reason like Dusty's family went from like super happy to completely just off the rails depressed, and Dusty's just trying to make a new life for herself and be happy. And then she ends up in the same town as Stone, and Dusty's stepmom is kind of like forcing an issue. But it was great. I still really enjoyed this. I gave it 5 stars. I absolutely loved it. Yeah, it's a great one. I really like Tijan's writing. I know this all like they're a hit or miss for a lot of people. I really like their writing. So that was all that I finished. Then the books that I carried over were Manacled, which I'm still reading. Hush Darling, A Lady by Midnight, and Echo War, which I did finish in October. So I will discuss those now. So in October, the first book that I finished was Hush Darling by Avery Kingston. I was reading this for, this was an author that I met at Wanderlust, and this book is Gia and Tanner. It's a deaf hero. It's a snowed-in romance. It was just very predictable, so I gave it 4 stars. I had a good time. It also took me a really long time to read it because I just was not, I was very much slumping, and yeah. But 4 stars, it was still a solid book. I just definitely could see, it was very predictable. So it wasn't anything like special that was happening. Then I finished What the Hex by Alexis Daria. This was just a short paranormal witchy novella. It was witchy season, so I wanted to read witchy books. And I wanted something, especially like after coming out of a slump, I needed something like short and quick that was going to hold my attention really fast. So I read What the Hex. It was great. It's Catalina and Diego. They're kind of like rivals to lovers. Catalina had moved away to New York, and now she's back in her small town in like near Miami, I think is what it was. And she's back for a wedding between her sister and Diego's brother. Turns out Diego's brother is possessed by a demon. And the only people that know that are Diego and Catalina, and they need to stop this wedding from happening. And of course, along the way, they are going to fall in love. And it was fantastic. I had a great time. I gave 4 stars. It's rare for a novella to get 5 stars from me. It has to just completely blow my socks off, and this one did not. Then I read Twisted Games by Anna Huang. This is the second book in the Twisted series. This is Bridget and Reese. This is a bodyguard romance and a princess. Bridget is one of Ava's best friends, and Reese ends up being her bodyguard because her other bodyguard is going to go back to where they are from to be a father. And Reese takes over, and they can't deny their chemistry between each other. But then something happens, and Bridget ends up becoming queen, and she's not allowed to marry a commoner. She has to marry someone of noble birth. But she's able to maybe do some things and make some things happen. And her and Reese are able to end up together. I give this one 4.5 stars. I don't think it lived up to quite the hype that people had put on it. It's still 4.5 stars. I still really enjoyed it. The hype for it it didn't live up to it quite as much. And when I compare Reese to other Reeses that I love, he just wasn't as great. Then I read I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jeanette McCurdy. This is a nonfiction memoir about Jeanette McCurdy's life and her time from when she was little, and like what her mom did to get her on TV and all these crazy things. And it was just gut-wrenching, but also surprisingly funny at times. But yeah, I gave 5 stars. There's no other rating for it. Then I finally finished A Lady by Midnight by Tessa Dare. I really enjoyed this. I sped through it. The first 300 pages. I sped through it, and then I went to Colorado and I stopped reading. And then I just kind of left it in a bag and forgot about it. And then I finally finished it. I only have 70 pages left to go. But it was Kate and Thorn, right? Is it Kate? Why can't I find it? Yeah, Kate and Thorn. It's kind of like he doesn't really like her at first, or he seems to not like her. Of course, things aren't always what they seem. But Kate doesn't know anything about her family. She remembers nothing. She thinks she was an orphan. She was raised in an orphanage. And turns out that she might actually be a noble by birth and not a bastard noble child. She's actually a legitimate noble child. And yeah, it was a great time. I enjoyed it. I gave it 4 stars. The only reason I gave it 4 stars is because it did take me so long to read it, and I felt like I forgot a lot of what had happened, and I wasn't going to go back and reread it. So then I finished Witches Get Stitches by Juliet Cross. This is the 3rd book in the Stay Spell series. This is Violet and Nico, and you meet them both in the first book. And Nico is actually Mateo from the first book's cousin, and Violet is obviously Savoy's sister. And she and Nico have a chance encounter in Austin a couple years prior to the book, where it was like a one-night stand, kind of. They didn't fully, but it was a great time in the beginning. Then he ends up moving because the thing about wolves is they tend to know who their fated mate is. And he follows his heart and moves to New Orleans. And of course, him being Mateo's cousin, he becomes part of the family. The Savoy sisters bring him in, and he ends up being becoming business partners with Violet. And she opens a tattoo shop and is trying to kind of help. She's come up with a spell to kind of help werewolves be able to control their baser needs and be able to, because they've seen how Mateo is able to kind of be more. He doesn't just go straight into werewolfing, he's less animalistic, is kind of how it's described. He's less animalistic in this because of the calming presence of Evie. And so Violet's kind of found a way to help other werewolves with this spell that she found. And her and Mateo have Mateo is for Evie. Her and Nico have she pushes him away because she does a reading on herself, which you shouldn't do, and reads it wrong and doesn't realize that Nico is the one for her. But of course, things are going to happen, and they're going to get together. But it was great. I gave 5 stars. I might like it better than Wolf Gone Wild, but I don't know that I like Nico more than Mateo. So, I don't know yet. Then I read Lessons in Sin by Pam Godwin. This was my first Pam Godwin, and I'm kind of glad it was my first because it wasn't what I was expecting. And I think had I read like other of Pam Godwin's books that I know are going to be like 5 stars, and I read, and I had read this one, I would be disappointed. So now it's just like, I can only go up from here because I didn't love it. I gave it 4 stars. It's a age gap, priest romance. Where is Tinsley ends up having to go to this private school with Magnus, who is the priest and the like headmaster of the school, and Tinsley is out there trying to like hit on him and get him. Hot priest is like kind of what they call him, I think, or maybe I'm getting that confused with Fleabag, but whatever. Basically, they think he's like this really hot priest, and she may or may not convince him to, break his oath to God. But I gave it 4 stars because it just wasn't my fave. Then I read The Takeover by T.L. Swan, and I absolutely adored this book. This is Claire and Tristan Miles. Tristan is the takeover man of the Miles Media. He takes over other companies, and when Claire's husband dies, he decides he's going to try to take over that company, and Claire pushes back so much, and she pushes back on their relationship, and it was just absolutely beautiful. I adored it. I gave it 5 stars. Her sons were hilarious. There's so much more that happens, but again, I'm already at like 30 minutes of this video, and I still have quite a few more books to talk about, so rapid fire going through it. Then I read Tight Ends and Tiaras by Lex Martin. This is like the second book in her like baby series, footballers and babies. And I loved The Varsity Dad Dilemma when I read that in February, so I picked this one up, and it did not disappoint. It was fantastic. This is Ben, who is the sister, who is the heroine from The Varsity Dad Dilemma, Gabby. Ben is her brother, and then it's her best friend. Where is it? I'm terrible at names. Sienna. So it's a sports romance, friends to lovers. Ben's ex comes to him with a 2-year-old and says, "Oh, I lied. This is actually your kid, not the guy that I cheated on you with, this kid. But help me. I want you back." And he ends up being like, "No, I have a girlfriend." And so he has to kind of fake date Sienna, and he uses her as like fake dating, but as the fake dating comes with real feelings, and yes, things ensue, and his family really tries to get him to get back with his ex-girlfriend, and she's keeping something really big from him, like what her real name is, and that her dad's like a millionaire. But that's fine. It was fantastic. It was still fantastic. I really enjoyed it. I gave it 5 stars. Then I read probably my favorite book of this month, quite possibly one of my favorite books of the year, Heartless by Elsie Silver. This is the second book in the Chestnut Springs series. Flawless was the first book. I read that in September. And this book was just absolutely fantastic. It was Cade, who is Rhett's older brother, and Willa, who is Summer's best friend. And Cade is a single dad. So it's the age gap. Single dad. And he needs a nanny for his son for the summer because he doesn't want his dad to do it, because he doesn't want his dad to be the disciplinarian for his son Luke. And this book was just, and so Summer is like, "I got the perfect girl for you." And he's like, "Does she have experience?" Oh, she's like, "Oh yeah, she's great at controlling young men." What he doesn't know is Willa is a bartender, not a babysitter or a teacher or anything like that. But that's okay, because Luke meets Willa and is just absolutely enamored by her and in love with her. And Cade might be too. And the dirty talk on that man, the mouth on that man, oh my God. Oh, I just absolutely loved this book so much. Willa is an amazing heroine. This book was fantastic. 5 stars, of course. Then I read Twisted Hate by Anna Huang. This is my favorite book. I know it's an unpopular opinion. A lot of people say Twisted Games is their favorite. Twisted Hate is my favorite. Josh and Jules' supremacy over all Oh my gosh, I felt all the emotions of this book. I was laughing, I was crying. The shenanigans Jules gets up to, the hate effing. Ugh, I love when hate sex turns to real sex, turns to like making love, and it's just, adored it. 5 stars. Can't even say much more about it. Then I read Jack, which is just a quick little novella. I didn't rate it because it's just a novella. It's not even like 100 pages. I tend to not rate anything that's under 100 pages because I just wouldn't know what to rate it, because it's obviously not on the same level, even as novellas that are like 100 pages. So yeah, it was just an interesting read. Basically, it's a demon who has a pumpkin head and is on fire and is summoned by a witch. Oh, and the demon tastes like pumpkin spice. So yeah, I laughed. I laughed a lot. It was great. It was a crazy time. And again, I didn't rate it because I just couldn't. But I laughed. I had a great time. Less than an hour of reading. Totally worth it. Then I finished A Court of Wings and Ruin. This was for the SJM Long. This was actually September's book. I wasn't going to be able to participate in the September live show anyways, because it was the day of the wedding I was going to. So I didn't force myself to read something. I still absolutely love this book. Still 5 stars. And yeah, I'm getting sad that we're getting close to the end of the SJM Long. But I wanted to keep up in order. So before I could read Tower of Dawn, I had to get A Court of Wings and Ruin read. But this is a reread for me, so 5 stars. Then I read The Words by Ashley Jade, or A. Jade. This is a rock star romance that Tori from Novel Life just absolutely adored. And I had gotten it in like an Audible sale, and oh my gosh, this book is so worth every hour that it was to read. It's a very long book. I think it's like 700 pages. It's a very long audiobook, like 16 to 17 hours, but it is so worth it. This is Phoenix and Lennon, and they are friends in high school. She becomes his tutor. Then he does something really shady, and she absolutely changes her life and is like, F this guy, I don't ever want to see him, I don't ever want to talk to him. So she absolutely hates him. Well, he ends up in like a crazy spiral that's going to get himself killed, and his manager's like, I need someone that hates him, because he's just so charismatic that he convinces everyone to let him drink and do all these things, even when they're supposed to be a sober companion. And his best friend and bandmate is like, oh, I know someone that hates him. All right. Oh, my mouth is dry from talking so much. He's like, I know. And so the manager goes and tracks down Lennon and convinces her to go on tour with them. And of course, Lennon and Phoenix still have a spark. He still cannot get her out of his head. She is like the one that got away. He regrets what he did to her, but absolutely fantastic. 5 stars. I love it. I already know it's going to be in my top faves of the year. Just like Heartless, I read 2 just amazing books this month, that I am already excited to reread next year. Then I read The Wreckage of Us by Brittany Cherry. This is a small town / rock star romance, emotional. Ian and Hazel kind of dislike to love, forced proximity, they become roommates. Slow burn. I gave this 4.5 stars. It was a good time, but when I compare it to other Brittany Cherry books, it was not a fave. So 4.5 stars. Still had a great time. I still definitely suggest you pick it up, especially if you want like an emotional romance that is going to give you butterflies and also rip your heart out at the same time. Multiple times rip your heart out. Then I read Irresistible by Melanie Harlow. This is another single dad nanny romance, but it did not live up to the Heartless, but it's okay. It was still great. I had a good time. This is Mac and Franny, and again, he's a single dad. His ex-wife just kind of like left him and his girls, and she's very flighty, and his daughters are kind of traumatized from that, and he is nervous about being with anyone else because he doesn't want his daughters to get hurt again. But they end up falling in love. The girls fall in love with their nanny, and they realize their dad's in love with their nanny as well. And they need to be together because they want the nanny to be their mom. So yeah, it was fantastic. I gave 4 stars. Only because when I compared it to, like, Heartless, it just wasn't up there. It didn't hit me in the feels. It wasn't as emotional. So yeah, 4 stars. Still a great time. And it's shorter. It's a lot shorter than Heartless. But yeah, and it's on audio. Then I read Focused by Carla Sorensen. This is the first book in the Ward sisters. So this is Molly Ward, who is Logan's younger sister. She's the oldest of the sisters. And when she was 16 in The Marriage Effect, Paige convinces her to, like, take what she wants. And so she may sneak into her neighbor's window and may try to convince him to sleep with her. Turns out he's 18 and he finds out she's only 16. Could have changed his life. His dad walked in, though, and stopped things from happening before things got bad and ruined his life completely. She realizes the error that she made, but they haven't seen each other since, and he does not like her because of what she did when she was 16, which, I mean, if people judged you for what you did when you're 16, when you're in your 20s, you grow up a lot. So that's kind of like the biggest thing, is they have to kind of get over that factor. But I gave it 4.5 stars. 4 stars? 4.5. I didn't like it as much as The Marriage Effect, but I also kind of knew that this one wasn't going to be, like, a favorite. I know that, like, the other books in the series get better, but I did still have a great time. 4 stars. Then I read Part of Your World by Abby Jimenez, and oh my god, I absolutely adored this book. I read this because I'm kind of trying to read books that I think are going to be on, like, the Goodreads Choice Awards. Like, I'm trying to chip away at that. I mean, I won't read the Colleen Hoover books because I'm just over that part of my life. Like, I don't need those emotional, not romances in my life. People say they're romances. They're not. I know It Starts With Us is, because it does have an HGA, but I'm just not interested. I don't love It Ends With Us. Unpopular opinion, I know. But, so I'm kind of trying to read books that I know are going to be on the list, and I have a feeling this one is, because it is traditionally published, and I think Abby Jimenez's other books have been on the list. I haven't read any from her before. But I absolutely loved this. This is Daniel and Alexis. It is an age gap, older woman, younger man, small town. She's a doctor, and he's just like a small town boy. And she ends up stranded on the side of the road, and he helps her out. And they have a one-night stand that turns to more. And oh my god, he is such a cinnamon roll. And I really needed that because I'd been reading a lot of, like, alpha heroes that weren't always that nice. And so I needed, like, a cinnamon roll, super sweet hero. And oh my gosh, the toothache I got from this man. But I adored it. I loved it. I gave it 5 stars. And it's a closed door romance. And I was not upset about it. I was not mad by it. It was fine. So I gave it 5 stars. I absolutely loved it. You should definitely read it. Then I read Tower of Dawn by Sarah J. Maas. This was the 7th book in the Throne of Glass series. And this kind of follows Kale and Nesrin on their side of the world during the events of Empire of Storms. And I know a lot of people say you don't really need to read it, but oh my gosh, yes you do. There's so much that happens and so much that you learn that is just chef's kiss. I really enjoyed this. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, I gave it 4 stars just because I have read Sarah J. Maas books that are better. Kind of where my ratings fall is just like, it's not a favorite. But I did really enjoy it, and I am happy I read it. And yeah. Can't say much about it because it gives things away. But yeah, it follows Kale and Nesrin, which I guess is kind of a spoiler. Sorry. This book's been out for 9 million years. It's Kale and Nesrin during the events of Empire of Storms. So, there you go. Then, last book that I finished in the month of October was The Wrong Game by Candy Steiner. And I didn't love this one. This is probably my least favorite Candy Steiner I've ever read. I was bored. Like, I listened to it on audio because I had gotten it in an Audible sale. It's not a long audiobook. It's like 10 hours, right? Which I listen at 2.5 times speed. So, should only be like half of a work day. It literally took me all day plus. And I know I read it on Halloween, so like I did do other stuff. Like I was busy with Halloween stuff, but it literally took me all day. I was bored. I just was not all that interested in it. This is Jack and Gemma. It's kind of a friends to lovers. Gemma her ex-husband has just recently passed away, and she'd gotten him season tickets for the Bears, but she ends up keeping them for herself because obviously he's no longer alive. and she's deciding that she's going to take a different guy every game on a date to kind of get back out there, do all that stuff. And the bartender at the bar that she's at with her best friend overhears this, and he convinces her to take him to the first game, and he ends up like forcing himself on her, not in a like sexual way, like he does not sexually assault her or anything, but he like forces his friendship on her, which then forces a relationship upon her. He's just always kind of around. He does some stuff to get tickets to be in the seats next to her at the next home game when she takes another date, like, so he doesn't force himself on her, he forces his friendship upon her, which then forces a relationship upon her that she doesn't really want because of what had happened with her ex. And yeah, so yeah, I give it 3 stars. It just was not a fave. But that is all of the books that I read in September and October. September was 18 books. October was 21 books. So when you do the math up, that's 39 books that I just talked about in 41 minutes. Oh my gosh, I'm tired of talking, and I still need to do my stats and faves, but that's alright. I will take a break before filming that one, especially because it's getting dark, so I'm going to turn my lights on. But yeah. Here's a small stack of the books that I own of what I read in the last 2 months. Yeah. Sorry that this is a longer video, and sorry I didn't talk about the books quite as much. Stay tuned for my stats and faves, because I will gush about my favorites. There will be 10 instead of just 5, plus the honorable mentions. But yeah, that is all I have for now. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, all that fun stuff. It really helps me out, and I'll talk to you in the next one. Bye!